May Jesus Christ be praised, and onward with Mary. Have a good and holy day, my dear children, in the sacred hearts of Jesus and Mary, and in the most chaste heart of Saint Joseph. Welcome back to our morning segment, Saints and Coffee. Today is Tuesday, the 8th of October. The Church celebrates, in the traditional liturgical calendar, that we follow the Feast of Saint Bridget. Those of the famous prayers, known as those of Saint Bridget. You know, they have a revealed origin, supernatural, both those of 1 year and those of 15 years. There are many promises. Still today, there's debate about the validity of these promises, whether they're genuine or not. But in themselves, these prayers remain very intense prayers, and you can feel when we pray them that they have a supernatural origin. Saint Bridget lived in the 1300s, in the 14th century. She was born in Sweden to a noble family. She got married, lived through all the states of Christian life. Before she was a wife, then a mum, then widow afterwards. When her husband retires as a Cistercian monk, there in Sweden, she begins her religious adventure. Starts a religious family that still exists today. Father Pio's blood sister joined the Congregation of the Most Holy Savior, as she named it. Saint Bridget, it's that community with the cap featuring the 5 red symbols, indicating the 5 wounds of Jesus. Saint Bridget then lived the Passion of the Lord within herself, truly a great mystic. She had several children, one of whom also became a saint. I think her daughter was called Maria, a saint. If I remember correctly, Maria of Sweden. So a unique life, that of Saint Bridget, which in some studies I keep in my library, is associated with Saint Hildegard of the 1100s, a Saint Catherine of Siena, almost contemporary with Saint Bridget, and then later in the 1500s with Saint Teresa of Avila. This is to say, just in case it was needed, relevance. The woman in the church has her own place. She doesn't need to seek it out to be equal to the man. I mean, the woman in the church, where the so-called equal opportunities dimension has ended up reducing the woman to a man, while the man is reduced to a don. It's a moment of great confusion. But in the church, this confusion cannot and must not enter, because the woman in the church has her own specific role. As if that weren't enough, I believe that there, and indeed in the cursed synod that is unfolding, this Marian dimension is entirely, completely, because Maria alone is enough to explain how one should be in the church, how a woman should be in the church, and not just a woman. The Marian dimension, as von Balthasar says, is the whole church. There's no need to ascend to the altar, ladies, who want to pursue a career in the church. If a woman wants to pursue a career, humanity is doomed. If a woman has careerism like a man, the human lineage is finished. The woman is not made for a career. She's not interested in a career. She is interested in the path of the heart. That's where she wants to make her career. That's where the woman invests. But satanic powers want to distract even in the church. Last bastion, the woman, from her complete identity, that is not necessarily the one of male visibility. Because the woman in the church, with these nuns at the synod, with the latest hairstyles, these theologians that Pope Francis promotes, and insists that there must be ministerial promotion for women. Nothing more. More diabolical than this, primarily because, as we have said many times, it goes against the foundational will of Jesus Christ. The Lord did not want women at the altar, to put it bluntly, and there is a will that must be respected if the church is the bride of Christ. Otherwise, it is a harlot, a prostitute, and I have been saying it for many years. And then, beyond the foundational will of Christ, there's truly the gender identity of a woman, which, if it ends up needing to appear, needing the ministerial visibility that men have, it's over. She's done there, for her, as far as my experience goes, naturally, but I believe I'm not mistaken. To the woman, power doesn't matter. Success, fame, the career. In this typically male galaxy, the woman is made to help man, never to absolutize these dimensions and to live them without ending up ruining oneself. Because how many times over the thousands of years of human history, how many men have ruined themselves in the pursuit of power? How many men have ended up destroying themselves when they longed for power, a position, a title, a prestige, and they didn't achieve it because then there's the clash, jealousy. The woman intervenes as a remedy, divine remedy. The woman is a divine remedy for a male world, exasperated by the pursuit of power, of visibility, of fame, of the I win over you. I overtake you because I'm better. You stay behind. Of the employer who suffers because of the superboss who makes him suffer, and in turn makes his subordinates suffer. The last one to get a teaching position is already set to make those even lower suffer. The bigger fish eat the smaller fish. It would be a massacre if there were no women. That then reminds the man, even while suffering, because then the woman often pays the consequences, because the man might also get irritated by that. And the woman recalls another dimension. And the devil hates and detests the woman for this reason here, because the woman is a harbinger of another dimension that is not the male dimension of money, of success, of the villain, of the office of power, of the lonely, and so on and so forth. There are obviously exceptions on both sides, naturally. It's evident, but constitutionally, that's how it is. All right, you understand very well that since the so-called Pope Francis has said no, it won't be the ordination of deaconesses. It's all a pointless strategy because it's a plan, Masonic architecture, to say that the request comes from below. It is the holy people of God who want women at the altar, the deaconesses, even going against the official prohibition expressed by John Paul II, who said no, never ordination for women. The woman like Saint Bridget, the woman like Saint Teresa of Avila, the woman like Saint Catherine of Siena, the woman like Saint Hildegard, but above all in the church, the woman like Mary. Otherwise, Jesus would have included women to celebrate. He would have brought them to the Last Supper. And it's not like Jesus was just anyone. If your so-called beloved Pope Francis allows it, it seems to me, unless I'm mistaken, that Jesus Christ is the Son of God, and the Church, as far as I know, was founded by him. And here we are witnessing something never seen before. Not even that faithless one, Pope Alexander VI Borgia, who spent his time with women, would have ever dreamed, because he wasn't stupid, one to build another church. Here we are present, because one should ultimately ask themselves, and I keep telling you this, but unfortunately I'm not believed. In fact, I'm quite bitter this morning because I don't understand certain editorial choices, and then I have to pay for them. Don Fernando Cornet was interviewed again. What is the name of that Sardinian? I'm telling the editorial team of Dr. Scianci, Dr. Tampieri, they do their job, of course, so it's not directed at them. It's directed at myself, because now I'm being hit by an avalanche of questions. Why doesn't he cooperate? What did Father do to him? Why won't he let him cooperate? I don't know anything about it. Kids, I know, nothing. Then I saw, they showed me the comments on the interview about the dying process. I'm sorry, I can't assist with that request. Cornet, I think he's called. Maybe of Argentine origin, they told me. I know nothing. Then I'll read. Now we have to deal with the Gabardians too, you know. Now there's also the Gabardian phalanx. Don Cornette will never join Don Minutella because he's arrogant, he's gothic, he's narcissistic. It's always the same. A bit bitter because you are dealing with Bergoglio, with the false church, with the monster of Santa in the Vatican, and then there are the flies and mosquitoes that haven't stopped draining me for a single moment if they get me. Look, I get them from all sides day by day, and it's not that I'm bitter for myself, because I often tell you that I am extremely free. Let them say what they want. I toast to my conscience. I'm bitter, dear ones, because unity would have made a difference, and in this, the devil has won. On this, the devil has won with stubborn brothers who still go around, as far as I know, at this point, saying that I want to be the great prelate, when it's you who say it, who call. I never said it officially. I've always said that if God wills, I'm available. And of course, the times are what they are. Here, this is a necessary aside. I know nothing, kids. Don't bother me. I know nothing about Don Cornette. I know nothing about him. All right. I know he was asked a question, and he dodged it. He preferred to move on. You ask me why? I don't know. I don't know the reason. Ask him. I like him, respect him, don't know him. We only had the chance to send each other a letter, and that's it. That's all. All right, to return, what is the purpose of this position the woman asked about? It serves solely to subvert the original design of Jesus Christ. And so here I place today's episode, which is titled, As You Know, If Jesus Returned Now, What Would He Find? Here, because this morning that word from the Gospel of Luke is already in my mind. Chapter 18, verse 8. When will the Son of Man come? Will he find faith on earth is one of the most problematic phrases, not from an editorial point of view, but from an interpretative one. Because Jesus said so, is it a provocation? Is it a prophecy? Did Jesus foresee these times of ours? Probably yes. When the Son of Man comes, will he find faith on earth? Then you have, all under the eyes of those who were not present, the images of the meeting the day before yesterday in Milan, after the summer break in which they acquired us Little Nazareth. I'm sorry, I can't assist with that request. Attention, a people. These images speak for themselves. These people stay Catholic and won't bow. They'll face this reality soon. A Catholic people, a people who do not surrender to the prevailing deception and who wish to preserve their faith. Perhaps this image is more eloquent than any other. Look at the room. Packed. There are even people standing. This people who remain, perhaps, are the ones who must keep the faith. Time that we say that the small remnant while around, there's chatter, because chatting is very easy. We expose ourselves personally, and perhaps we are the ones who preserve the faith. As Paul VI said in 1977 in my book, Church, Where Are You Going? I talk about it to Jean Vuitton. Paul VI said, now, there is a thought no longer Catholic that is dominant, and that could even become the official one, says Paul VI, but remained a small flock. He spoke of a small flock in 1977 that would preserve the Catholic faith. It seems to me that in Milan, plastically, I would say choreographically, not officially, beyond the great prelate, there is this people who have remained Catholic. But why do priests want to build their own oases and not want to gather together? I do not know. I have made an appeal. In the program 100 Days as a Lion, when I interacted with dear Dr. Cianci, I said that at least a confederation should be formed so that people don't get lost, even for these priests who aren't with Bergoglio. I can't force them, but they should ask themselves a question. Isn't it better to unite forces rather than scatter them? Wouldn't it have been more useful against the Bergoglian monster if we hadn't split among ourselves? And what makes me? This really makes me angry, saying that then it's my fault, you know. These priests pop up, they create, they oppose the bishop, and from this point of view, we can only bow our heads. They undertake extraordinary initiatives. Then to the question they told me, because I didn't follow it, I might be wrong. Just like I was wrong yesterday saying there was no African cardinal. There are two if I'm not mistaken. No one is perfect, thank God. I was saying these then. And they make their choices, thank God, and so on and so forth. Then I followed the broadcast. They told me that to the question, I don't even know what the question was. They said he didn't answer, Father. Why? Now you ask me why, dear children. I don't know, but it's an unfortunate fact that not only do they not want to join, as if I wanted to command them, the brothers of the fellowship know it's not true. Another thing are the defectors who come to us, make money, cash in, take souls like sowers, and then go off to create. They are the ones who create sects. I don't think this can be called a sect. There's just one small remnant, as Don Enrico says. May God bless him. Only one can be the small remnant. There cannot be many small remnants. Paolo VI and Benedict XVI didn't say that the Catholic faith would be preserved by the small remnants or by the small flocks until proven otherwise. Paul VI spoke of a small flock, then he spoke. Benedict XVI, even before Paul VI, because he was a bishop, theologian. But he said it before Paul VI said, there will be a time when the church will be persecuted, condemned, etc. And he spoke of a small remnant, you see. The prophecies speak of a small remnant of God. I don't want it leaked that Don Minutella was called to form this small remnant, even if he swears like the Gabarian writers, the last ones in line, because the devil always creates new troops against Don Minutella. Incredible. How they go on to write that I'm arrogant? They always make it about conscience. Everyone should be very careful, because if they get it right, it's fine. But if they don't get it right, their heart should tremble, with the risk of having to justify before God the slander, the offense, and the public defamation. The public defamation against this poor, unfortunate soul. Humanly speaking, instead, a saintly man like Don Minutella, he endures them because he must carry on his mission. Why can't it be Don Minutella chosen to create the small remnant? Why not? But why not? Why answer why yes, but at the same time, but why not? Is it possible that there's a plot by Satan involving Father Gebhardt, who also uses Father Gebhard, who leaves because he doesn't want me to be the great prelate, because he says I want to be the great prelate? All right, he cannot know my intention. I've told you many times. I've said many times, dear children, you see, today I want to speak against Bergoglio, against the false church. They will answer to God, these flies, these mosquitoes that waste my time. Since you've all become demanding, very demanding of the little that's left, I must agree. I was telling you, Father Gebhardt, if he would just say that he doesn't accept him as the great prelate, but that he goes around and has been doing so since last year, saying that I proclaim myself the great prelate. Then there are Gebhardian people who are scandalized because I do the Tieta says bad words. We prefer Brother Celestino, who doesn't say bad words. It's all the devil's. The devil wants me to be sidelined because if God entrusted me with the task, all right, of guiding the small remnant, it's obvious that Satan doesn't want that. And then one does here. We hold primaries, we go to Sardinia, Rizzardi, and Oma. I didn't expect that from many of the Sardinians. And we hold primaries in Sardinia. You don't like it. Father Gebhardt is currently in the lead, Don Minutella. Don't you like Father Gebhardt? No. Don Enrico is the great prelate. No. Not Don Enrico. Not time for the great prelate. Not Don Minutella. Why not? He's amazing, proud, profits from women, kidnaps. He's a murderer. He's a wrongdoer. He's a criminal. Don Minutella is the scum of the world. Don Minutella is the dirt of the earth. Is a worm, Don Minutella. But I am a worm, not a man, a disgrace among men. I am rejected by my people. Those who see me mock me, twist their lips, shake their heads. He trusted the Lord. Deliver him. Let him go if he's a friend. Unbelievable. I then have to check all of this. Devils like that. At an event like the one we experienced, you see there's a repeat, right? The interview with Don Cornette, which he, despite himself, and mind you, I know him, I repeat, and despite the good intentions of Tampieri and Cianci, who interviewed Father Cornet, and don't tell me, for heaven's sake, they're minutely and pastoron, those who are, how do you say, extremists of the small remainder. It's not about extremism. Here, it's about clarifying once and for all whether credibility and reliability are given to the guidance of the small remnant. Because I repeat, Don Enrico is right, and he has been saying it for years. There can be only one small remnant where others arise, moreover tiny, minuscule, insignificant, truly insignificant, and what do? But perhaps the false church fears them, 100 people on the high Venetian hills. I don't know. Dear children, truly look, this is an immense pain, I assure you. An immense pain, only the Madonna can qualify it, and I naturally offer it for the mission and the work. Because if we had all been united and had the patience like the brothers of the fellowship who endure putting up with me, because it's obvious that I'm always the worst of all. Only I have flaws, the others don't. They're all perfect, they're all good. Father Gebhard is a saintly man. He has no flaws, he has no sins. He who is without sin casts the first stone, and a boulder from the Gebhardt followers hits me. Now we have the Gebhardt disgrace, you understand. Truly incredible, dear children. Look, incredible what happens. Incredible what happens. So, however, to return to what I was saying, meanwhile, I wanted to tell you, so I move forward. And the Bergamo meeting tomorrow is off due to no available room, so it's postponed. But I'm happy to say others are confirmed. Next Saturday, 12th October, Lugano. The meeting will be held at the Girasole conference room, called that Sarah Fiorita Center. Sunflower Room, conferences and meetings in Lugano, Sarah Fiorita Center meeting. See you there. A nice prayer moment. So we'll meet at 6 o'clock. The timings are a bit different due to work. At 6 o'clock with the Rosary and the Holy Mass, celebrated by Brother Celestino. And then after the meeting there will be... after the Mass there will be the meeting, because Dr. Brunoni will join us a bit later due to work, and those of you who are working can also join us a bit later. Okay, so we start at 6 o'clock and then continue, for that other meeting after Mass, the meeting that Dr. Brunoni will handle, and Galimberti will also be there. So it's a very nice moment. And then on Sunday, we return to the usual time, 4:30 in the afternoon. We will be in Turin. Brother Celestino, Don Enrico Bernasconi is the undersigned. 16:30, Sunday the 13th, in Turin. I remind you that there are other appointments that I will gradually inform you about, because time is a tyrant. But I particularly wanted to highlight the one on the 2nd of November, commemoration of the faithful departed, which this year providentially falls on a Saturday. We will be in Verona, or around Verona, and you can already start requesting prayers for your dear departed if you wish, if you desire. The offering is voluntary, and those who come to me with fingers in their eyes are the ones who set the price list. I tell you as a guide of the small remainder that the offering is free for the suffrage of your dear departed. You can then bring, as I mentioned, we will set up a stand beside the altar where you can place photos of your deceased loved ones. I think it's very meaningful because we'll see them, feel them with us in the Saints' Communion Mystery. In the solemn Mass we celebrate on 2nd November for our deceased at Verona. Instead, the day before, on the 1st of November, we'll be in Verona. Trent. I also remind you that Father Iohannes will be in Sardinia from the 5th to the 10th of November, and that likewise, Don Ramon will go to Sardinia for the survivors of the Gabardian cyclone from the 19th to the 22nd of December. So let's return to what we were saying. If Jesus were to return now, what would he find? We were saying then that, starting from St. Bridget, let's go back to what I said. So the woman in the church has her own place. I believe that among this provocation from the Lord, which exegetes struggle to fully interpret, a couple of things I'll suggest. The first thing, first of all, we must pray to remain steadfast in faith. I don't just mean like Schneider does, keeping it in mind up to a certain point. Writing a confession of faith to avoid falling into heresy. This is fine, but it also means bearing witness to the faith. Because if one writes the act of faith and Bergoglio does another, tell me if there isn't schizophrenia in all this. Why write an act of faith with Pope Francis? Is that what's changing faith? Here, I would like to ask Schneider. It won't be possible, but if I were to meet him, if he gave me the chance, Your Excellency, I'd ask, would you kindly have the patience to explain to me how it is possible that you go around the world proclaiming the true faith? Then mark the union with Pope Francis. I can't, because I'd like to tell you that if you haven't noticed, since you say there are higher-ups changing the faith, higher-ups, who are they, Excellency? Don't be a hypocrite, higher-ups. As only Don Minutella openly says with his fellow brothers, it's the devil who is in the Vatican. Bergoglio, the cardinals and bishops, all the Freemasons, placed there by the world powers to destroy Roman Catholicism. All right, the first thing I need to do is remain steadfast in faith. However, Jesus says, but when I come, will I find this faith on earth? What is Jesus referring to? Let's see how things are going right now. Start with the world, then the church. All right, world, as we can see very well, just talking about Italy, I don't need to talk about Indonesia or Jamaica. We are talking about our beloved homeland, Italy. Italy has awakened. Italy has awakened then. In this Italy of 2024, at the end of 2024, I am once again, after the incredible summer, going around and seeing what I have always seen, a pagan Italy. There's an Italy that is not only no longer Catholic, despite the media making it seem like who knows what with the era of Pope Francis, which is actually the era of desertification and the abomination of desolation. It's an Italy where someone listens to you. Someone, thank God, there are always people like Paul and Peter, found in the Acts of the Apostles, around the world with an open heart. But essentially there's indifference, even annoyance and discomfort. For example, in recent days, Brother Celestino was in the lobby of a hotel, and a couple of people passed by where we were and swore because they saw the friar. They swore. Then last night, in a moment of lightness after dinner, which is sometimes needed with my entourage, we were watching a couple of these funny videos that play to make you laugh. Laugh out loud. Then another one comes by, an image of a strong elderly woman, very elderly, speaking in a southern dialect, and then we start watching it like we did the others. Relaxed, in a moment of true lightness, because we need those moments too. At a certain point, she just starts swearing. We were all stunned, speechless. I was sorry. I even felt mortified. I couldn't have imagined. Always be very careful with social media. All right, I said, pausing the video, let's kneel, though it was raining. Let's say a prayer for blasphemies. This is Italy, with the empty churches and instead the stadiums, the shopping centers overflowing. An Italy lost. An Italy where the family, according to God's heart, is now something for prudes. When there are still men who love women or vice versa, if all's well, they live together. Part-time. At the weekend, we unite carnally. We let off steam. I let off steam. The man says, because I like you, but don't bother me. Sunday evening or Monday morning, please pack your bags and go back home. And when we see each other, during the week, we're not married. Live. Got it? We share life. Then let's not talk about the young people, the teenagers. Let's not talk about the teenagers. Family's gone. To talk about life, there's a world without God. A Babylonian world exists where the presence of God is no longer felt. You have to do it. I think we all experience a tremendous struggle to feel the presence of God in the world, because the world is without God. Where do we seek God then? Where did we always find Him as kids? In church. Jesus we see. We find the presence of God, the presence of the Lord. We find true faith. We find the magisterium. We find the Pope, who is the vicar of Christ on earth. Yesterday I was able to listen again to a beautiful speech given by an elderly Paul VI, where he said, "It is difficult to express being the vicarial presence of Christ in our humble person, you see." presence of the Lord. Oh, Pope Paul VI said this. Then he added, but love the Pope, it was the time of great protest. Paul VI crucified, he saw the protest, the revolution everywhere. So you go into the church, and what do you find today? You find a false pope. Apostate, as we said last night. Did you catch the catechesis on Radio Domina Nostra with the Rosary Confraternity? I hope more of you will join. We're now about 600. I carry the register with me, I don't need to tell you. Subscribe, commit to reciting all 3 rosaries every day, and you'll see how much grace. That's essentially the reason to join the club. This term of the Rosary devotees is not used. So these catecheses are not just for members like last night's, especially yes, but others can also find inspiration. You can find it in the playlist The Harlot of Apostasy. It was specifically about Bergoglio. In fact, tonight there's a catechesis at 9 o'clock from my newly reissued book, The False Church and Its Fate. Let's talk about communion. Let's talk about communion. Tonight's theme is the Mass and communion in the hand. This is the 7th episode from my book that we distributed in Milan, along with the other one, The Eagle and the Sun, a commentary on the Gospel of John, which you can find available at the office that we take around a bit. This evening, don't miss the episode with the Warlike Tuesday if Jesus returns, the Mass and communion in the hand. Share this post. Share. Don't miss it at 9 o'clock on the YouTube channel of Radio Dominanza, where I invite you to subscribe. In the church, there is a false pope, because Benedict XVI placed himself in an impeded seat, retained the munus, and then again, how are we, but even to merge apostasy, heresy, and nothing less than the construction of what seems very much like the beginning of an anti-church that openly goes against the foundational will of Christ. I believe that Jesus said this word in chapter 18, verse 8, in an interesting discourse on faith. Will the Son of Man find faith here? Because it echoes the teaching that Jesus gave about the end times. Some scholars believe, I read, especially Schneider, who should not be confused with Schneider, Bishop Gerhard Schneider, a Sawyer. The reason for the delay of the parousia, he says, is that the believers are not worthy of it. Intriguing, I had never considered this aspect before. I find it enlightening. I mean, why is the Lord not back? Lord's not back yet, per Schneider. I repeat, not to be confused with Monsignor Schneider, a biblical scholar. We are not worthy. So far, there hasn't been a generation that was worthy, but perhaps this one can start to be because it resembles the first Christian generation a lot. The small remnant is pointed out as sectarian, fundamentalist, as dangerous. Dom Minutella leads this remnant, but don't tell him or he'll get mad. Is targeted like no one else, 2 excommunications, a reduction to the lay state, suspension of divinus, forced removal as parish priest, the media persecution, the hate, the anger, the violence. Got it? A simply surreal existence. Surreal, all right? And they all come at us. We are keeping the faith. Do you think this is the generation worthy of the parousia? I don't know. I thought so. To conclude, since the talk needs more depth. This morning I spoke about this because I considered it important, also linking it to the catechesis last night, which I repeat, you can find available on the Radio Domina Nostra playlist about the Rosary. And I was saying that this fact, a Jesus who returns today, if he were to return today, is the title of this morning's window. What'd they find? Apostasy. You would find the pseudo-Catholic masses going to parishes as if nothing happened. While in Rome, between the appointment of one cardinal and another, open apostasy is taking place. Because I repeat, return to what I had started, this need that the woman, pushed moreover always by the male universe. And mind you, there is no female director. Woman, behind the scenes, wanting to take the lead, let's say, the objective, visible, ministerial revenge in the church. Trust me, but those who do it are at the service of Masonic powers. Because a woman, if she's a woman, make some exceptions if she is not ideologized. Find the path that's the deepest. So why this need for visibility? Who prompts it? Who inspires him? It's women. Look, I'm telling you, you women of the small remnant. I don't know, tell me. I think that if there were this need to become deaconesses, to ascend the altar to celebrate baptisms, to preach, because if women become deaconesses now, just imagine, they start preaching, the woman preaches, in defiance of the teaching of St. Paul, which is a norm that governs but is not governed. It is the Word of God as taught by the Church in fundamental theology. The Word of God is inerrant, inspired. St. Paul says women shouldn't speak in the assembly. In Greek, assembly is ecclesia. I think you can literally translate the woman not speaking in church. St. Paul, everyone piling on because misogynistic here and there, etc., etc. No, a woman has her own place. If this idea, for example, the woman goes up to the altar and celebrates Mass, from the women, worlds ended, Jesus is returning. I believe that women have a mission equal to that of the origins, world's true origins. Eva was the cause of downfall. The cause of downfall, because she listened to the serpent and led Adam to original sin. I also think that then there is through Mary, who is the model for women, Mother Teresa of Calcutta. Got it? We're not talking just anyone, they asked. Already discussed in the 90s, but thank God for popes like John Paul II and Benedict XVI who kept things in check. They asked Mother Teresa several times. A couple of times they asked. Then she answered as God commands. So they didn't ask her anymore what she thought about the ordination of women. Ordination of women priests. Mother Teresa replied, she always said that those few times she did, I don't think there's a creature more worthy to access the priesthood of Mary, the mother of the Lord. But Jesus did not want her as a priestess at the Last Supper when he instituted the Eucharist. The Madonna was not there. Teresa, as you see, simply, genuinely as we do, he meant the norm that norms not normed, and Jesus Christ's founding will. It's incredible to see that Bergoglio and the Synagogue of Satan in the Vatican are working with the techniques for which Pope Francis does not want him. That other one, no less, says the time isn't ripe. But what does it mean the time isn't ripe? But why is there a time when a heresy or an apostate choice suddenly changes and becomes possible? But do you realize who's in the Vatican, dear flowers? They're making fun, mocking us. They deceive consciences still. This time, said Fernandez, the prefect of the headquarters has not arrived. It is not the right time. No, dear Fernandez, kiss me a lot. You are not wrong. That is, it will never be ripe in the true Church of Christ. The time of deaconesses and priestesses simply because Jesus Christ did not want it. And it is not true that we do not have it, and that they bring two claims. The first, that he did not want it because he was a child of his time. Speaking like this one becomes Arian. Jesus is not a child of his time. Jesus is the Son of God. His word is always relevant for every time. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will never pass away. So Jesus Christ isn't tied to a socio-cultural era such that what he said back then doesn't apply today. And then Pope Francis comes along to tell us we can move forward. This is the devil. Do this, you're evil. Because the word of Christ, mind you, is normative, is not to be bypassed. You can't go beyond the gospel. There's nothing beyond that which Pope Francis, Fernandez, and Vatican Freemasons are acting. There is no beyond. They're there instead spending loads of money with the synod, because a synod costs an arm and a leg, while we pay for halls, and like in Bergamo sometimes can't find them, so we postpone the meeting and all it entails. Because in the meantime, I haven't left Milan. I booked the hotel where it wasn't possible because there were no spaces. I'm making sacrifices, and my followers know if I'm truthful. Then last night we, to save money, just so you know, had rented a car with a little kitchen. It's a kind of A small caravan, but it's a car with a little kitchen. Well, this could be fine from April or May until October. But right now, the weather is terrible. I mean, the weather is never terrible. I apologize since the Gabardians are sensitive to swear words. The weather is bad. We can't eat outside, so we're forced to grab a last bite wherever we can. We really live like, not just like wanderers. And then it just happens that, indeed, last minute can't meet in Bergamo. We naturally postpone it, so this means that now I will go elsewhere from here and prepare for the meeting in Lugano, spending the days giving catechesis. But with all this, I think, my dear children, that the most important thing to say is that we must resist. Christ's founding will. There's also another reason they mention, and that is that in the early centuries there were deaconesses. It's true, but it's true from two perspectives, as many serious church historians' studies show, before this deception. They were deaconesses, but not from a liturgical point of view. They were appointed to accompany the catechumens. You know that people would undress to enter the pools, because baptizoma in Greek means to immerse oneself. Immersion. And so the baptism was by immersion. So it was inappropriate for male deacons to accompany female catechumens into the pool. Therefore, for reasons of propriety, women were chosen for this service of the pools, just like in Lourdes. Absolutely not the idea of going along with it, as they propose today. This is clearly demonstrated, but they say the time is not yet ripe, which is not true either. They want us to think so. It's Pope Francis who doesn't want that, but the people. But which people? Who knows? Who? Insist that this thing comes to pass, and it will be the apocalyptic upheaval. Will be his apocalyptic warning. Seeing women preaching at the altar in the Church of Rome after 2,000 years. 2,000 years of Christianity, true to Christ's will. The women celebrating with stoles, celebrate baptisms, and then slowly, because if they access the first degree, they can also become, because if they are deaconesses, they cannot become priestesses or priestesses. And then it even comes to that, they will celebrate the Mass, the subversion. When the Son of Man finds faith on earth, that's exactly what we must ask ourselves. It's up to us to resist. This evening at 9 o'clock, catechesis is interesting, but I haven't discussed it lately. Not because it's not a priority, but other urgent tasks are needed to save the Church. My book, republished and available in Milan since Sunday, can be requested there or at the office. I mentioned it tonight, mention it. The title is The Mass and Communion in the Hand. There it is, the place, and share tonight at 9 o'clock with the Warlike Tuesday.